Hello and welcome to me making a really big shark egg featuring Florence. Yeah, I definitely had the dimensions wrong, look at that. Whoa. So I'm gonna re-measure. Hello everyone, I'm back. After a nutritious lunch, I will now commence making the egg. I'm very nervous because if it goes wrong then I will hate myself forever. So, measuring out the egg, I found out that it is in fact nearly not the egg, measuring out the calico piece, I found out it's 4 meters 90 centimeters long and 166 meters width, which means I have a lot more calico length than I originally thought I had, but not as much width. But it's fine that I don't have as much width because it's like the perfect amount. I want the base of my egg, so this bit, I want that to be 2 meters long so that even the tallest of persons can fit in there. And then I would like the little horns to be about maximum 50 centimeters on either side. So I need about 3 meters and a bit of length. I realised I was thinking about it wrong. I'm going to use this visual aid to help me. So I have a long piece of calico I'm currently sitting on, and I folded it in half like this. So it's like this. So it's still 4 meters 92 long, but it's only whatever 1/2 of 166 meters is, right? So when I make the egg, I'm going to cut out this type of shape on 2 pieces of fabric, and then I'm going to sew them together. So basically, when I want my egg, this is 490. If this is 490, then I can't have 3 meter long something egg with maximum length. What's 490 divided by 2 is 245. So the maximum length, including the seam allowance, is 2 meters 45 for my egg, which means I won't be able to have a 2 meter long kind of egg sack you can be in, because if I make it 2 meters long, then I only have 20 centimeters on either side to make my little horns, and that's not enough. So I need to figure out how big I can make this main bit without compromising on the length of my horns. The maximum length the main capsule part of my egg can be is 165 centimeters, leaving me with 40 centimeters on each end to make the little dingly bits. And to get the ratio of this egg, I will have to make the width of the main bit 135 centimeters. This is a lot smaller than I originally thought I could make the egg. I thought I could make it so massive that, you know, like anyone could fit into it. But obviously that's not possible anymore, which is quite disappointing. But yeah, I wanted to make something that would be inclusive, and obviously that's just not possible with this, but I'm gonna just view this as a prototype instead of a final kind of design. There you go, this would be my egg. Perfect. So this is my piece of fabric. I've drawn on the half of my egg. So I've made sure that there's a tiny bit of fabric left here so that when I cut it out I get this round corner the way I want it to be. I've also made sure that the horns are thick enough to make sense in regards to the proportion of the rest of the egg. And then I've also made sure to make this line curve upwards slightly so that there won't be a dip, so that I can recreate this kind of curved shape. And then it goes in slightly where the horns are, it goes out. This is the widest point of the egg will be here in the middle. Right everyone, so the moment of truth has come. I'm gonna cut my fabric. I'm just gonna go for it. The worst that can happen is that I fuck it up, in which case I'll have just fucked it up, and that's fine. Right, now I will take away the excess fabric. So now I've cut out my egg shape. Obviously I'm going to unfold this. Little horn, up, doop, 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 doop. Little horn, up. I think it might be too wide because looking at it, it just is so wide and not very long, and my little horns are not very long either, and a shark egg is more narrow. So I'm going to pin it all together, and when I've pinned it together I'm going to lay it out flat, see how it looks. If I don't like the width, I'll just pin it more narrow and just sew along the pin line. I was pinning it all along the egg sides that I'd cut out, but I realised it would make the horns look too small if I went along here and I wanted more of a dip. So I've adjusted it here and also there. And I'm gonna now go ahead and sew it all up. For my sewing, I'm thinking I'm gonna use obviously kind of like whatever white or cream coloured thread I have. And then I'm also going to use a zigzag stitch instead of just like a single line stitch, because even though the single line stitch I think uses less thread, which would be more sustainable, the zigzag stitch is stronger, because at the end I'm gonna have to, like, you know, turn the egg inside out and stuff it, and then it has to be strong enough not to rip at the seams when somebody, for instance, lies in it, or when I'm lugging it around to do a shoot with it. And I've also decided that any kind of thread that I cut off, little bits that come loose, I'm going to put in this little jar, and at the end when I stuff my egg, I'm just going to include it in the stuffing. So I've now sewn all my sides of my egg together, leaving this part here on one side of the egg unsewn. This will allow me to basically reach in and turn the egg over so that the seams are hidden. As you can see, I've used a zigzag stitch all the way around with a pretty small stitch length, or whatever it's called, because I think it will make the seam stronger, and will hopefully mean that my egg doesn't break. Because the little ends of the egg horns aren't really easy to unfold, I'm going to use a little stick or something to kind of poke the ends out. So I've laid my turned out shark egg on the floor now. I actually really like how it looks. I'm now going to stuff these things, the little horns of my egg. I'm gonna use the filling material of the duvet for that. Alright, so I've gotten a lot of stuffing out of one duvet, which is really good, and I'm gonna go ahead and stuff the little spikes, and then when I've done that I can sew shut the remaining part of the egg, and then move on to actually properly like stuffing it. I've stuffed the horns of the egg, all 4 of them, and I stuffed them with the cushioning from the duvet, and I've stuffed them up until they reach the main body. So now I'm going to sew shut the remaining open part of the egg, and then I'm going to continue with my things. Okay, so I've sewn shut my egg. I use a invisible seam stitch that I learned how to do on YouTube to sew it, so that it would be the same seam as it has been all the way around other parts of the egg, like here for instance. And I'm now going to basically cut a line in the middle of this here, where I'm going to then later put the Velcro, and cutting that open, hemming it, and Velcroing it will mean that I will then be able to reach through that and push my the rest of my stuffing in it. I've got 2 more duvets, so I think I've got enough stuffing. And the way that I'm gonna figure out how far to make the cut is by just looking at my small version, so I'm gonna leave some space on either ends like I did here. This is the roll of Velcro I got, quite thick because quite wide, because I didn't want it to be too thin in relation to, you know, the size of my shark egg. Hello everyone, I'm back in the next morning, and I've got my 4 little spikes from my egg, and I love them. And now I'm going to be attaching the Velcro to the cut I made in the middle of the egg. And what I did last night, cut the slit and then I cut a little corner into it, because I thought this will make it a flap, so then I can attach the other piece of Velcro into here and just close it like this. But the thing that happens then is it makes like a weird fold here, and I don't really like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a spare piece of calico that I have from making this. I'm going to cut a strip that is as wide as my piece of Velcro, actually a little bit wider than that. I'm going to attach it onto here like this, attach it on, so then it will create an overlapping flap, which then I can attach the opposite piece of Velcro to, and then I can close it properly without there being any tugging or pulling at the fabric of the egg. The reason I don't want it to be only 6 centimeters, which is this plus this, is because I need to hem it on either side, and I want about 1 centimeter or 2 of seam allowance. So I'm thinking it has to be 10 centimeters wide, and I don't know, just a bit longer than this, so I can, you know, hem it on either side and attach it properly. I've cut out my strip. I've hemmed it here and on the end, and I'm just pinning it to where I want it on the egg, and then I'm going to sew along this line here. Then I'm going to hem this edge, and then I'm going to attach the Velcro to it, and hopefully it will work. I've realised I need to hem the side of it first before attaching it to the egg, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult for me to figure out where to pin it onto the egg to have enough fabric for my Velcro. So I'm going to do that instead. I've made my little strip. I've hemmed it fully with a zigzag stitch, and now I'm going to take my piece of Velcro, which is the opposite piece to the one I've already got pinned on the egg, and I'm going to attach it to the bottom of this strip of fabric, and then there will be a little gap here, and same thing on the other side, where I can, like, you know, properly attach this bit to the egg, and this will be free. And I'm attaching the Velcro to the fabric first because I think it will be easier than attaching the fabric to the egg and then dragging the whole big thing through the sewing machine to attach the Velcro. I think that would be silly, so yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm stitching on my little Velcro flap. Excited to see if it's gonna work. I hope I got my measurements right. Now that I've attached this to my opening, I'm going to sew another line along here just to fully secure it. Alright, so I've actually finished the closure for my egg. It took weirdly a long amount of time. It took 4 hours, but I've never made a closure like this before. The closure is quite big. It'll be big enough for somebody to open it and get in the egg. Obviously it's Velcro and it's super sticky. Like if I pull it, it doesn't come apart. And I ended up using a zigzag stitch because I think it looks kind of nicer than just a straight line, and it also holds better. And obviously you can see like the stitch line on the closure all the way down, but I don't mind at all. I think it looks fine. So I've been thinking about how to make the little egg sac, which I'll be putting inside the egg so that you don't end up sitting in the cushioning. I've worked out my measurements, and now I'm just trying to work out what kind of fabric I can use for that. Obviously I don't have enough calico left to make the sac out of, but what I do have is 2 extra duvets, because I have 3 duvets in total to get all this padding out of, and I have to get the padding out of this duvet anyways. And even though it is also sewn into the padding, I'm pretty sure I can seam rip it enough so that I can get it completely off the pack of the stuffing in one go, and then I have all of this fabric, which is quite a lot, to make the pod out of. Start stuffing the egg with the padding from this, the duvet, this duvet, and then at the end I'm going to add the filling from the duvet I just made the sac out of, because that's also in the wash. And I hope I've got enough padding, but I have a slight suspicion that I don't, so I'm going to figure out what to do when I come to it. Looking at it now, it's really nice, and the woman who sold it to me said she'd only used it 2 times, so I'm kind of hesitant to cut it up. So I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to use this cut up filling to pad out the little horns a little bit more and the sides, and then I'm just going to lay the duvet uncut into the egg and kind of make a little nest, which I will then put the sac into later. And then I'm going to see if that works padding wise, because if it does, that means that at some point in the future, when I probably am going to open the egg to upcycle the calico and this padding into other things, I still have that whole duvet. Hello everyone, it's day 3 of making this egg. My plan is now to cut this up and use this on the backs here on either side to kind of really pad this out properly. And then I also realised I would like another thick duvet because I want more cushioning in the egg because it's kind of flat right now and I want it more bulbous. So I went on Facebook Marketplace yesterday and I found another big duvet, and again I'm not going to cut this up because I think it's wasteful. I'm just going to lay it in the egg and basically make a little nest. So I've realised that using this to pad out the little horns makes the fabric seem really lumpy, and I don't like that because that's what I'm trying not to do. So I'm going to use some of this stuffing from this part of the egg for here, and then I'm going to figure out what to put here instead. Probably just more duvet. Okay, so I've now padded out the horns fully. There they are. And I've put in loads of fabric scraps that I had. I've put in all the little loose threads and offcuts that I had from making this egg. And I put in my first duvet, and I'm going to put in the second duvet to pad out the sides a little bit more, trying to keep a well here which I can then attach the egg sac into. I've finished stuffing the egg. I'm so happy with how it looks. I realise that it's a bit lumpy here because it's only one layer. It's a little bit see-through and you can kind of see the shapes of the duvets through it, but I really actually don't mind that. I think it kind of makes it look very like homemade and fun and quirky, and I like that a lot. I'm so glad with how the Velcro is holding up. I was anxious that as I filled the egg it would start not holding because the egg would expand, but actually it works out fine. This is the egg sac I made yesterday out of the fabric that was one of the duvets that I cut apart and took the stuffing out of. It's basically like just a big sack. And I measured out the dimensions. I've got the maths on my paper, which we'll see in my sketchbook, and I'm going to leave the, I'm not going to turn it inside out so that the nice seam is on the outside, because I'm putting it in the egg like this, and I'm going to sew it on, if this is one side of the egg, into the egg like this, so then if somebody lies in it, they'll be lying on the nicely sewn together seam and not on the scraggly bits. So yeah, and I'm going to hand stitch it into the egg, because there's absolutely no way that I can use a sewing machine with this.